How's it going, everyone? Welcome into NOLA Preps Friday Night Live. Spencer Urquhart here with Joe Halm and Chris Dabe. Week 4, guys. Week 4 in the books. It was exciting. And yeah, a lot of close, thrilling games. We'll start with yours, Chris. Brother Martin and Jesuit. A really close game. Came down to Brother Martin kicking a last-second field goal to get that one done. 31-29, I believe, was the final. So talk to us about it.
Yeah, that was a game that Brother Martin really led from the very beginning. Eastern Royal scored on the first play from scrimmage, a 60-yard pass from Hudson Fields. And then the game they went up 14-0, and then the game kind of bounced between a one-score, two-score game all the way through until the fourth quarter. That's when Jesuit, they put in a sophomore quarterback and kind of got a spark from him. Manny Vanderway led a scoring drive. With his feet and his arm. He's an impressive player. I hadn't seen him play before. So they went down and scored. Then later they scored again and took the lead. And then with 1:08 to play, Brother Martin got the ball, and Hudson Fields calmly led his team down the field and put Max Berrios in position to make a 38-yard field goal to win the game. 2 seconds left when it went through. Jesuit they lateraled the ball around on the ensuing kickoff 4 times and didn't get anywhere. So it was definitely back and forth. And I mean, it's just when you talk about the rivalries in the Catholic League, you look for great games like this and exciting finishes, and that's what we got. And standout performances with Hudson Fields, threw for over 300 yards. Eastern Royal, let's see, I got them down for what, 9 catches for 168 yards. All kinds of stand-up performances. I wish I could have summed it up better in my story that'll be in the paper tomorrow, but I'll fix it for all you readers online.
For sure. Good deal. Just talk to us more about Easton. Just how special is he? How is it watching him? I know he's got all the hype surrounding him, 5-star recruit and all that. And he's doing it on the field. He's just week after week putting up big numbers.
Yeah, certainly he's been a known player for a while. And I mean, he really caught my attention during the track season. I love covering track and seeing some of these multi-sport athletes out there doing great things. And he won the district, I think it was the 100, beat the defending state champ. And I thought, oh, wow. And that speed really showed out on the field tonight. This is the first time I got to see him play in person in an actual game. I saw him in the Jamboree and he returned a kickoff for a touchdown there, but it just seemed like old hat to him. But first play of the game with that 60-yard touchdown, it looked to me like I don't know if he caught some of the Jesuit kids off guard with his speed, but he got behind the defense and he was pretty wide open for a touchdown. And interestingly, with Brother Martin, they brought in a second quarterback, Justin Morgan. That's Trey Morgan's younger brother. He's a sophomore. He came in, gave the team a little spark in the third quarter. That's something Mark Bonice likes to do. He tries to work two quarterbacks into the game, and he's always done that. And Morgan came in, had a nice run play, and I don't know if that brought the defense up a little bit. As then the next play was a nice 38-yard pass right in stride at the goal line to Eastern Royal right there. So he came up big, and certainly kicking game as well. He's out there for punts and kickoffs, and Jesuit went to great lengths to kick it away from him. That impacts field position and stuff like that when you're kicking short. And so yeah, there were all kinds of ways that he impacted the game, but really, Brother Martin does a nice job of incorporating so many other players into the mix. Kind of looking at the roster while I'm talking, but there's one other player that I wanted to highlight, but maybe they'll come back to me. I don't want to hold you up here, so.
All good. Talk to us a little bit about I know you mentioned it, the Jesuit quarterback change. What was, do you know why that went down or?
Yeah, I think it was just to kind of give a little spark. They were down 2 scores. Taylor Norton's been the quarterback the last couple of years, and you got a sophomore here who can kind of give a little bit of a different element with Manny Vanderway, and you could see it right away in the way he was running the ball. And so a big part of that drive is some he ran for 50 yards for 8 carries. So certainly they used his legs a lot, and a lot of that was just in 2 or 3 possessions. So I think it was just to give a little spark, and it really made a huge difference in the game. Allowed Jesuit to take the lead, and I'll be curious to see going forward just how they kind of mix it up with their quarterbacks and one thing you can say about many of these teams in the Catholic League is who they are in like week one of league play. They're going to change through as the year goes along. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be other players stepping up, and the team that you see in week four of the whole season right now is not the same team you're going to see in week 10. And all these coaches are so great about working players in and finding the right time to get them in, especially the younger players. We're talking about some sophomores out here, so by the end of the year, they're going to feel like experienced players.
For sure. Yeah, interesting stuff there. Jesuit Brother Martin. Yeah, classic Catholic League matchup. Always fun. Before we shift gears to the North Shore, Chris, talk to us a little bit about John Curtis Romo. I know they had, I believe you said before the show, Curtis iced the game with an 11-minute drive.
Yeah. Just from reading our coverage that we had out there, certainly I wasn't out there to see it, but that sounds like something that Curtis would like to do, isn't it? An 11-minute drive and the win 21-19 against Rummel. And I saw Rummel play the last couple of weeks, and what really stood out with them was their run game. Especially the two wins that they had against U High in the Superdome, and then beating Shaw last week, and good defensive performance against Shaw. So you knew this was going to be a real battle, and Curtis, I'd love to know how many times they've closed out games in that very same fashion to ice it. And it's got to be so frustrating for the other team to not be able to get them off the field and see that clock just melt down to zero.
Yes, indeed. The legend JT Curtis is never gets old. The teams just can't
Yeah,
seem to
and I
stop it.
mean, and those kids, they all grow up playing this system, so and by the time they get to high school, they know all the ins and outs of it, and then it just becomes a matter of habit and execution. They're not really learning anything new, I would imagine. So when I'm sure it's got to be a thrill for JT and all the other coaches there to see them kind of execute it in the way it looks like they did to run out the clock tonight.
For sure. Yeah, they had kind of a down year last year as far as the regular season, and they went on a big postseason run. John Curtis now 3-0 to start the season. They had a bye week last week, and they had the big win in week 2 against the school in Cali. So, Joe, let's talk a little North Shore preps, man. Slidell gets it done against Mandeville. You were over there at that one, so talk to us about what went down there.
Yeah, I thought that one was going to be a track meet, and it sort of shaped up early like it could have been that. Mandeville came out, they drove into Slidell territory, and then Tyler Roberts recovered a fumble. Slidell drives right down the field. They score in 11 plays, 7-0, and they really controlled the game from that point on. Carlos Flemings Jr. had a big 49-yard touchdown right before halftime to make it 14-0. And then Mandeville seemed to get their footing a little bit in the second half. Drew Calora, they ran a little bit more up tempo. He looked a little bit more comfortable. They score. Jake Cicchetti scores on a 7-yard TD pass. All of a sudden, it's a 13-7 game midway in the third quarter. You think, hey, Mandeville is going to find their footing and find a way to win this. And Carlos Flemings Jr. just hauls in a nice 77-yard pass. He gets behind the defense, and he's gone. And Slidell never really was in any danger after that. I mean, this is a signature win for them. They did the big plays on offense were huge. Kawan Jones on offense had 150 yards rushing. He was a big thing for them. But the biggest thing for Slidell was their defense played extremely well. They held Mandeville in check for most of the night, had a couple of scoring drives, but they were able to get off the field on fourth down and, make some key tackles at key moments. But huge win for Slidell tonight. And, I was high on this team in the offseason because of that offense. And Flemings Jr. is just a great receiver. They call him 7-11 Los because he's always open, is what Quan Jones told me after the game. Really great quote. He's good. Ricky Williams overcame some errant throws tonight to make the big throws in key situations. And Slidell suddenly 3-1 and looking like a real threat in that district.
For sure. Yeah, huge win for Slidell. Team that appears to be on the rise. Another North Shore program that's on the rise is North Shore Panthers. Huge win tonight over Covington, 17-10. Joe, tell us a little bit about Bobby Sanders' squad looking up this year.
I called Bobby on my way home from Slidell because I said he and I had actually texted because I said in my farmer preview of the week in my rankings that, North Shore is a better team than their winless record indicates. He told me you couldn't downplay us just a little bit, not have Slidell all the way focused on us. He and I laughed about it, but it's true. Covington went out and scored in the first on their first drive. They drove right down the field to 7-0. North Shore could have folded. They didn't. They came out, they executed their game plan. Ramon Williams had close to 200 yards rushing. I'll get the story from Treasure shortly on that. But when I talked to Bobby, he said he had probably around 200 yards rushing. And they just kept finding ways to control the game and grind out the game. They actually weren't that successful in the red zone. They had a couple of field goals where they could have scored touchdowns, but they're able to get a huge win at home because Covington's a good team. That's a good defense, and they were able to control that game against what has been it's a parish rival. It's a district rival from years past. It could be a district rival again when they redistrict. So it's a game where no one's sleeping on anybody. And for North Shore to get their win, I mean, that's huge for them to sort of just get the monkey off their back because last year they didn't get a win until week 8. And against a really good Covington team that I thought would run away with that game in the second half. And North Shore proved me wrong, grinded it out, and it was a good night for Slidell football tonight.
For sure. Yep. Both those Slidell teams getting it done. And speaking of running away in the second half, that was the theme of my game tonight. I was at Newman Willow, and that was a close game in half. Only 10-0 Newman led. They started off a little slow on offense, but then it was the Jake Randall show in the second half. The Tulane commit, who was running back last season, now Newman's starting quarterback, went off in the second half with 3 rushing touchdowns and just couldn't be stopped really down the stretch. He had 3 in the third quarter. Just came out their first drive, found the end zone, and then found from 28 yards out, and then 2 more rushing touchdowns from 60-plus yards out. And at that point, the game had gotten out of hand where they put in the backup toward the end, and he threw a pass there. And the game was actually interesting from the standpoint that Willow, if it wasn't for all the turnovers, probably would have kept it closer because Willow ended up with 6 turnovers on the night. It started off with a fumble that set Newman up with a short field in which Jake Randall found fellow senior George Loop for a 19-yard touchdown to put the Greenies up 7-0. Then they got a field goal right before half to go up 10-0. But yeah, Willow, unfortunately for them, just turned the ball over way too much. They were throwing it a lot. That air raid offense of theirs looked pretty promising at times. They could move the ball, but just anytime they got near the end zone, it seemed like they turned it over. I believe had 2 picks in the end zone. They ended up touchbacks for Newman. So, yeah, just kind of a wild game there. But big win for Newman from the standpoint of not only their first win of the season, but head coach Aaron Weiss's first win as Newman's head coach. So big to get that monkey off his back against across the street rival there in Willow, both uptown schools. So, yeah, big win for Newman. They needed this one. As for Willow, they were 3-0, their first loss of the season. They'll look to get back on track next week. But, yeah, big one for Randall. Finished with, check my notes here, 220 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on 14 carries. I'm not sure what that yards per attempt is, but it's probably something absurd. So, yeah, big night for Jake Randall.
Is he throwing the ball much?
He threw it, I believe, 15 times. Don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I remember right, he completed, I believe, 11 of 15 passes for a little over 100 yards. I think he finished with 105 yards and one touchdown and 1 pick. So,
Yeah, I saw them play against St. Charles to open the year, and he made a few plays throwing the ball. I remember one, he just kind of rolled out to the right and got a receiver. I don't know, it was like a 25 or 30-yard pass right along the sideline. I thought, wow, he can throw pretty well, and we all know how he can run because he's going the 2-lane for as a running back, and we saw it last year with his running ability. So it's just interesting to see how well he can throw it as well, and I'd love to see how Newman kind of develops their offense around him as the season goes on. They opened the year against 2 teams that are in the state rankings right now with St. Charles and Riverside. So, like you mentioned, them being 0-2, nice to see them get that win.
For sure. Yeah, another game that kind of caught my eye was Country Day Douglas. Country Day was 1-2 to start the season, but they're now back to 500. They're 2-2 with 49-36 win, I believe, and ended up kind of a high scoring game there. And yeah, another good day for Hudson Wright. That was a day game, by the way. It started early in the afternoon. And yeah, they did well on offense. Their running back Justin Drago, talked to him and Hudson Wright this week. Did a little story on them, and they showed up and did well there to get back to 2-2. And now that Hudson Wright's back healthy, he'd been battling a concussion, missed first 2 weeks, but he's good to go now. And seems to have that Country Day offense really trending up, like Ben Powell was saying. He's a first-year coach over there, saying with Hudson there, he feels like the offense has a lot of potential, and they lived up to it today.
Yeah, I know Ben Powell's talked about everyone thinking when he got the Country Day they'd just be running the kind of like that wishbone option offense like he had at Haynes, but it seems like he's doing a real nice job of kind of taking the players he has and finding the best system for them, and that's just good game planning, good coaching, and just sort of figuring it out as not based on a system that he just wants to run and that's it, but really seeing the type of players he has, and it's pretty good to see the point totals that Country Day has put up the last 2 weeks, even though they lost last week, gave up 60 some points. They scored in the 40s now the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they've been in the 50s. Yeah, I think they had 55, 56, and then
That's right.
yeah, in the 40s, 49, almost 50 today. So yeah, they're really turning up. And then the Shaw Eagles got their first win, 31-13. They're over LCA, who I believe was undefeated coming in. They had beaten Rumble, who Shaw struggled against last week, but Shaw able to take down LCA pretty handily tonight. A big win for Hank Tierney's bunch.
Yeah, well, Shaw did win in week 2 against West Jefferson, but yeah, they played
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, my bad.
Carr and Rommel, really put
Yeah,
a
so they're
number
back to
to them.
2-2. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's and LCA is the team that beat Rommel by 1 point. So to see Shaw go up against what presumably is a pretty good opponent and beat them like they did, 31-13, is pretty impressive. Haven't seen anything on that game. I don't know if there was anything different they did offensively or whatever, but whatever they did, they executed it.
Most definitely. Yeah, I saw Jim, our old pal Jim Derry, got something up on that game. So we'll have to check out Jim's work there to see how Shaw got that win, because that was a big one for them. Another interesting score I see here: Patrick Taylor took down Kenner Discovery there, 34-26. Big win for Patrick Taylor coming off that heartbreaking loss to St. Martin's.
Yeah, that's a team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago, then went 0-10 last year. Now they've got a couple of wins. So um, good. They had a real young team last year, so they got some players that have some experience now, and seems like it's showing in the results.
For sure. You're watching NOLA Preps Friday Night Live. That was our Week 4 recap. Before we sign off, we'll briefly talk about tomorrow's games. We got a couple of Catholic League showdowns. Carr Holy Cross start off the doubleheader there at Gormley, followed by Warren Easton and St. Aug. All 4 teams undefeated, 3-0. So I believe you'll be at both of those, Chris. Talk to us about how you're feeling about that doubleheader.
Yeah, as if I don't spend enough time at Gormley, but yeah, that St. Aug Easton won. Both teams scored in the 60s last week. I certainly hope both teams don't do that again tomorrow night. As entertaining as it might be, that sounds like it would have the makings of a 4-hour ball game. But with Carr playing Holy Cross, they're both undefeated. I think Carr, I've seen them play a couple of times. They don't quite have the explosive offense that they had last year with the 3 wideouts that are now playing in college, so they could quickly put up a lot of points. So I'm curious to see how things kind of play out, not just against Holy Cross, but just going forward throughout the season. If they're going to be running the ball, that's going to shorten the game a little bit. The big thing is, can anybody do anything against that Carr defense with Richard Anderson up there and all those other talented players that they got that are already committed to some big colleges? So it'll be. I don't expect a lot of fireworks necessarily offensively, but can anybody move the ball on Carr? We haven't seen much of that outside of the American Heritage team that had like 10 of the top, however many players from Florida. And then, yeah, with Easton and St. Aug, That might be a high-scoring ball game. Houston's got two supremely talented running backs with Thomas Vaughn and Terrell Surtain, and then St. Aug's been putting up a lot of points with Sean Coulon throwing touchdown through 7 touchdowns last week against the team from Texas. What I'm really curious to see is if Carr and St. Aug come out with wins, and that sets up a pretty good showdown next week in Algiers. Those teams will be playing each other out there, but I don't want to look too far ahead. Certainly, you got to be respectful of the opponents that they're playing tomorrow to see how those games play out. I expect them to be good, so we'll see.
For sure. Yeah, hard to look too far ahead at the Catholic League, being that you still got half the games to be played. So, Joe, before we sign off, any North Shore matchups in Week 5 that you have your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I think North Shore and Mandeville just got a lot more exciting after tonight's results. And then Lakeshore is going to go over to Salmon. That used to be a district matchup. Salmon moved up to 5A 2 years ago. Now it's non-district, but there's two teams that are really good. Salmon Speed's going to be a test for Lakeshore, who's now 4-0. And the last remaining undefeated team in the parish. And then before we sign off, I want to give my shout out to the city of Slidell. North Shore won, Slidell won, Salmon beat Liberty 38-22. Hope John Paul beat Ben Franklin 56-7. That means the city of Slidell is 4-0 in football today. So it was a really good night in the Dell all around for football tonight.
Wow, that's impressive. St. Paul's beat Kennedy 28-21. That was a good win for them there. So, yeah, cool. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of NOLA Press Friday Night Live. For Joe Halm and Chris Davis, Spencer Urquhart signing off. Thank you all for watching.